The forest lay silent beneath a pale afternoon sky, the kind of silence that pressed against a man's ears until he began to hear his own thoughts too clearly. Elias Crow moved carefully between the pines, his axe resting on his shoulder, boots sinking softly into the damp earth. He had lived among trees longer than he had lived among people, and after 12 years of widowhood, the woods had become his only honest companion. They did not ask questions. They did not remind him of what he had lost. They simply stood, enduring wind, fire, and time, much like he did. He had come deeper into the forest than usual that day, following the sound of running water and the promise of strong timber. The frontier town of Red Hollow was growing, and sawmills paid well for good logs. Elias needed little money for himself, but the habit of working had become his anchor against the emptiness of his cabin. Work kept memories at bay. It was the scent that stopped him first, smoke faint but unmistakable. His hand instinctively tightened on the axe handle. The frontier had taught him caution. Smoke could mean travelers, outlaws, soldiers, or worse, people desperate enough to kill for less than a loaf of bread. He stepped silently toward the source, each movement measured, his breath slow. Then he saw them. 3 women lay near a fallen tree, half hidden by brush and shadow, their dark hair spread across the forest floor, their clothes torn and stained with dirt and blood. They were Apache, that much was clear to him at once. Elias had seen Apache traders before, proud and sharp-eyed, their presence commanding even in silence. These women, however, were utterly still. For a long moment, Elias did nothing. The forest seemed to hold its breath with him. He scanned the surrounding trees, expecting ambush, but there was none. No sound of movement, no glint of steel, no whisper of danger, only the quiet pulse of the woods. He approached cautiously and knelt beside the nearest woman. She was alive. He could see the rise and fall of her chest, shallow but steady. A dark bruise marked her temple, and dried blood streaked her cheek. The other 2 bore similar wounds. They had been attacked or driven to exhaustion, perhaps both. Elias felt an old fear stir within him, one shaped by frontier tales and whispered warnings. Many settlers feared the Apache, and many Apache feared settlers in equal measure. Violence had carved deep scars on both sides. Yet as he looked at the 3 unconscious women, fear gave way to something else, recognition of vulnerability, of shared suffering. He thought of his wife, Margaret, the way she had once collapsed from fever in their cabin while he stood helpless, praying she would open her eyes again. She had not. Elias exhaled slowly and made his choice. It took him hours to carry them one by one back to his cabin. He fashioned a crude stretcher from branches and rope, moving carefully to avoid further harm. The sun dipped low by the time he reached home, his muscles screaming in protest. He laid them near the hearth, fetched water, cleaned their wounds as gently as his rough hands allowed. That night Elias slept little. He sat by the fire, rifle close, listening for sounds that never came. The women remained unconscious, though one stirred occasionally, murmuring words he could not understand. He wondered what fate he had invited into his life, what storm he had stepped into without knowing. At dawn, the first woman awoke. Her eyes flew open, sharp and dark, locking onto him with startling intensity. In a flash, she tried to rise, pain forcing a gasp from her lips as she fell back. Elias raised his hand slowly, showing empty palms. "You're safe," he said quietly, unsure if she understood. "No harm here." She studied him, her gaze never wavering. After a long moment, she spoke in broken English. "Where are we?" "My cabin," he replied. "You were hurt. I found you in the woods." Her expression shifted, confusion, suspicion, then something like guarded relief. She glanced at the other 2 women who were beginning to stir. "My name is Naya," she said. "They are Luma and Shyla. Why did you help us?" Elias hesitated, then answered honestly, "Because someone had to." Over the next few days, the cabin filled with cautious coexistence. The women recovered slowly, their strength returning with each sunrise. Through fragments of shared language and patient gestures, Elias learned their story. They had been part of a small group traveling west to rejoin kin after soldiers burned their settlement. Along the way, they were attacked by bandits who sought gold rumored to be carried by Apache traders. The women escaped, but exhaustion and injuries claimed them before safety did. Word of gold made Elias uneasy. Gold brought men like flies to blood. As if summoned by thought alone, danger arrived on the 5th day. Elias was splitting logs when he heard horses. Too many, too fast. He felt it then, the shift in the air, the sense that fate had been circling him since the moment he lifted those women from the forest floor. 5 men rode into the clearing, hard-faced and armed. Their leader, a tall man with a scarred jaw, smiled without warmth. "Afternoon," he drawled. "Heard tell you've been entertaining guests." Elias stepped forward, placing himself between the men and the cabin. "This is private land." The man laughed. "Nothing private about the frontier, old man. We're looking for 3 Apache women, dangerous ones, carrying something valuable." Behind Elias, the cabin door creaked softly. He could sense Naya's presence without turning. "They're injured," Elias said evenly. "And they're under my protection." The outlaw's smile vanished. "That's a mistake." The first shot rang out before Elias could respond. The forest exploded into chaos. Elias dove for cover as bullets tore through bark and air. From the cabin came the sharp crack of gunfire. Naya had taken his spare rifle. The fight was brutal and fast. Years of solitude had not dulled Elias's instincts. He moved with the woods, using trees as shields, striking when opportunity presented itself. The Apache women fought with fierce precision. Their movements coordinated, silent, deadly. When the smoke cleared, 3 of the outlaws lay dead. The remaining 2 fled, terror driving their horses hard into the trees. Elias stood panting, blood trickling from a cut on his arm. Naya approached him, her expression solemn. "You have chosen a path," she said. "They will return. Others too." Elias nodded. He already knew. The frontier never forgave defiance. That night, as they buried the dead far from the cabin, Elias understood the truth he had avoided since his wife's death. He had not been living. He had been waiting for the forest to claim him, waiting for time to erase him. Instead, destiny had found him. The women left at dawn 2 days later, their strength restored. Naya pressed a small leather pouch into Elias's hand. Inside was gold, but also something more, a carved stone marked with Apache symbols. "For protection," she said, "and remembrance." Elias watched them disappear into the trees, feeling the ache of parting, but also something unfamiliar, hope. Weeks passed. Then months. Red Hollow grew louder, closer. Rumors spread of a woodsman who stood against outlaws, of an Apache alliance forged in blood and fire. Elias no longer cut timber alone. Others sought him out, settlers needing guidance, travelers needing shelter. He never imagined that finding 3 unconscious women in the forest would pull him back into the world, reshape his fate, and give meaning to the years he thought were already behind him. But destiny, like the Wild West itself, was never gentle, never predictable, and never finished with a man until his last breath faded into the trees.